You're listening to the Business Brain Food Podcast. This is episode number 127.
Welcome to the podcast that gives you direct access to the world's leading business building experts. Head to MaxMyProfit.com.au to catch up on past episodes, download your free business growth tools, and access show notes for every single episode. Now here's your host, Ben Futrell.
Well, g'day and welcome back to another episode of Business Brain Food, my friend. This is the podcast that's 100% devoted to taking you and your business to the next level. And the good news is, it's great news, in fact. It doesn't matter whether you're brand new to this business thing, so maybe you're just scratching that entrepreneurial itch. Or maybe you're like myself and you've been in business for a long time and you've got the scars and wounds to prove it. There's always something new you can do to take your business to the next level, and today is absolutely no different. I've got a fellow called Jeffries coming on, and Ross is going to help us understand the persuasion mastery system that he's developed. We're going to talk a bit about how to get more sales, or be able to close that sale, or convert more people into a client, whatever terminology you want to use. I don't like using the word closing, but definitely closing the sale. But it's interesting to see that what some of these top people around the world are doing, and the methodologies that they're using, the top salespeople on the planet, and how much of it doesn't just rely on the technique, or not so much the technique, rather the system that they use, but the technique is what is more important. And the technique is not about the actual selling. The selling is not in the selling. The selling is actually in your own mindset and in your ability to be able to get rid of some of those feelings or emotions that are making you ineffective. So today we're going to talk a fair bit about that, which is awesome. It's so good to get people like Ross Jeffries coming on the show, because we get such a good wide variety. And I'll tell you a bit more about him in a second, because it's interesting to see he's not, he's from a very much a different type of how can I put it? A different type of way of thinking, rather than just here's the words you should ask, here's a sales script. It's more about the actual methodology and mindset. So we'll get stuck into that very, very shortly. And before we do that, if you're a first-time listener, welcome to the Business Brain Food Podcast. So glad you dropped by, and I hope that you do go back and listen to some of the previous episodes, all 126 of them. My gosh, that was going to take you a while. Yet I do get the messages every now and then from people who are what I call binge listening. And I see my wife doing this with some of the TV shows. She's got that Netflix going, and I don't know how it works, but you just sort of press play and it just plays one show after the other throughout a whole series. And I see people doing that with podcasts now. I do it myself sometimes when I find a good podcast. So if you are binge listening, and you've got to 127, I don't know what time of the year it is or what year it is for you. Hopefully you haven't got too many to go. But if you are a brand new listener and you haven't gone back, please go back, listen to some of the previous episodes. You'll love it. If you're a long-time listener, thanks for coming back. Thanks for tuning back in. It is because of people like you that we have a show, and I really do appreciate it. Now, if you are enjoying the show, please jump into the iTunes store, leave an honest review or rating. Always do love them. I'm going to read one out today by, I don't know how, I don't even know if this is a name. This is one of the funny things about the iTunes store, is that people have to use weird names because everyone's names are taken. So we've got one here by Skydive Geronimo. He says, great brain food. He said, I found this a few weeks back and have been listening to an episode daily. So there we go. There's a binge listener. And then we've got CSUD Holes, CSUD Holes, HOLZ. I don't even know if I can pronounce that. I don't think it's a name. I think someone's just put some letters in there. But anyway, he said, top quality guests, engaging and interesting interviews, and excellent production. I've really enjoyed listening to and catching up on past episodes of this podcast. It's become a regular event for my daily commute into the office. Excellent content, tips, tricks, and advice for Australian business owners like me. Thank you so much for leaving those, those feedbacks, those reviews on the iTunes store. I love getting the feedback, by the way, because it's a good way for me to know that you're enjoying the show, but it also helps people that stumble across the show in the iTunes store, because there are so many podcasts and we only have so much time in our day. We've got to make decisions about what it is we actually invest some of our time on. So it's great to have those reviews there. So I do appreciate that. All right. Now, before we do get stuck straight into this interview with Ross Jeffries, which I know you are going to love. He's a great guest and he's got some great stuff to share. I wanted to remind you, if you are in business and you're looking for a way to take your business to the next level, one of the things that I developed over several years of working with hundreds of businesses was a business plan template template that was actually simple to use. And in fact, so simple to use that if you downloaded it today, within a few hours, you'd have a business plan that you could use to drive your business, to engage your team, get yourself motivated, etc. So, if just a few hours of sitting down, I've done it a step-by-step process. Now, this is not a business plan you would use, by the way, to go raise capital. I mean, you could take it for investment or something, but it doesn't include all the forecasting and the numbers. It's a business plan that's more tactical, so it's more operational. It's about what are your goals, how are you going to achieve them, how are you going to make them happen. And so after many, many, many years of working with dozens of different industries and dozens of different dozens of different businesses in dozens of different industries, a bit of a tongue twister, that one, I developed this business planning template because I saw it was a struggle for people. Now, I'm sure that you would agree that to have a successful business or to be successful at anything, you'd want to go into that particular thing with a bit of a plan. It's really easy to put a plan aside or put planning aside because it's one of those things that's important, but it's not urgent. And I get you got to pay the mortgage and you got to feed the family, you got to whatever it is you got to make sure your customers are getting what they want to get done. But at some point, you've got to take time out to work on your business rather than in it, and that's what planning is all about. Now, if you don't have a plan, I always say to people, if you don't have a plan, what are you doing? Where you get up in the morning, how do you know what's got to be done? I mean, besides the stuff that's got to be done because the customer's expecting it, or because, you've got to pay a bill or whatever it might be, or what are you doing to take your business to the next level? What are you actually doing to grow your business, to achieve your goals and your targets? So without a plan, you're probably running around with a blindfold on, and that's not a great way to grow a business. It's not very rewarding either, So if you're not feeling fulfilled or excited about your business, the likelihood is that you've lost the direction and you're just doing what's got to be done rather than doing what's going to make you achieve your goals. So I encourage you, head to maxmyprofit.com.au. We have a free business planning template there. Download it. You will have to give us your email address and your name and a phone number. That's cool. We're not going to spam you. We will give you a call and just see how you're going with it. And help you in any way we possibly can. And it's a great way for us to meet you and a great way for you to meet us. And you may even end up meeting with me. Who knows? But head to maxmyprofit.com.au. Download can't even talk, as I said before. Download the free business planning template that we've used. We used to only give it to our paying clients, but now we've made it accessible for everybody because it's such a useful tool. And I'm a pretty passionate guy when it comes to achieving my vision. And my vision, which I'll share with you right here, is to reduce the fatality rate of small business. It's horrific to see how many small businesses fail. So I'm really passionate about that, and that's why I invest time into things like this podcast. So head to maximumprofit.com.au and grab yourself that. All right. So Ross Jeffries, interesting guest. I'm not going to tell you too much because we sort of talk a bit about it in the beginning, but for over 25 years, he's taught over 60,000 men how to use their language to tap deep into the unconscious process for human connection, emotion, and decisions to find the women of their dreams. So he started out in the field of dating, helping people find a partner, I guess. And you wonder, well, what's that got to do with business? Well, all of that psychology, all of those techniques, the persuasion mastery, I guess, is the same techniques that you use in business to get a client. And a lot of people say to him, what does that have to do with entrepreneurship or sales or marketing? But if you look at it like this, if you convince a guy who's been terrified of women his whole life to drop that fear in under 10 minutes and teach him how to communicate in a way that truly moves and touches another human being to want to be with that person, then you can convince anybody of anything. And so now what he does is he works with a selection of hand-picked, high-powered entrepreneurs, salespeople, organisations and professionals to teach his unique, one-of-a-kind, what he calls under the radar persuasion blueprint. And the good news stuff is today you can easily use this as well to irresistibly convince your clients or prospects, or audience, or whatever it is you want to call them in your marketing and your sales, which can only mean one thing in business, and that is increasing your bottom line. So, we are here to help you take your business to the next level. So without any further delay, let's get Ross Jeffries onto the Business Brain Food podcast.
Business Brain Food.
So I've got Ross joining me today, and I'm looking forward to having a chat to Ross about all things persuasion, and I'm sure you are too as a business owner. It's always invaluable to be able to learn how to persuade people to buy from you, and whether you're hiring or doing whatever it might be that you do. Welcome to the Business Brain Food podcast, Ross.
Hey, it's an honor to be here. And before I start sharing this mind-blowing information that I know you'll immediately go out and use, I just want to say it's my honor to be someone who can speak to business owners and really help you reach your goals by following what I say.
Yeah, great stuff. And I know they all appreciate it, Ross. Now, before we do get stuck into chatting about helping business owners achieve their goals, I ask this question of every guest, and you're not going to escape it, and that is for you to share something quirky about yourself.
It's time for something quirky. And now, something quirky.
Well, how about this for quirky? In my other job, I teach men how to pick up women.
Well,
Pretty quirky.
That must put the old art of persuasion to the test.
Well, it sure does. One of the things I like to say is if you can take a guy who's absolutely terrified of women, never has had a date in his life, totally switch his mindset around, and then teach him how to sort of, quote, sell himself, close quotes, and get lots of dates, I can teach a business person to persuade anyone to do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe let's kick off there. What got you into the field of training people in the law of persuasion, or in the skill of persuasion?
Well, it started as an outset of my not being able to get a date to save my life. I was always the best friend, the big brother, the buddy, but I just could not actually have a girlfriend. And so one day I stumbled on a book about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and that's a study of how language structures consciousness. Consciousness, in turn, shapes decisions, and decisions shape actions. And through that, I got over my shyness, my fear. I learned to communicate in an attractive way. And then my students, who I would teach seminars and do video courses, and over the years, my students would say, I met the woman of my dreams, but I've doubled, tripled my income using what you say in business. And I thought, here's a way to reach a much broader audience. And, my parents were realtors. They were in real estate, and they just were not very good at it. So we struggled to put food on the table. I thought, if I could only go back in time and teach my parents all my hypnotic skills, because I'm also a very well-trained hypnotist. I do therapeutic work with people. If I could teach them to take all these hypnotic skills, embed them into their sales context, they would have made tons of money. We wouldn't have suffered so much. So now I've sort of vowed that I'm going to teach entrepreneurs, business owners, realtors, people like that, how to use these tools and influence others unconsciously to shape their decisions and therefore take the actions that you want your clients, customers, prospects to take.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You call them a set of tools, but they are, isn't there? There's a set of tools that you can use. So it's not about. A lot of people think you've got to be a born salesperson, or you've got to have what they say the gift of the gab here in Australia. I don't know if you have that terminology in the US, but it is a set of tools. Yeah, it's a set of tools.
No, in fact, I think the problem with born, quote, salespeople is they come off as either slick or what I call bulldozers. So you want to set a middle ground. On the one hand, you don't want to be a please like me. The other hand, you don't want to come off as slick or pushy. There's a way to walk through the world where you're both humble, or at least you can fake being humble, and you're confident, because that's what appeals to people, being someone who's humble, who doesn't play a know-it-all, and at the same time is confident and can take that person by the hand and lead them to make the decision and remove the burden of making a decision from the client. Now, that sounds really nutty at first, but in fact, people feel burdened to make decisions when it comes to parting with large sums of money. So if you can influence them unconsciously, and the point I want to make is this: if you take nothing away from this episode, but this one thing I'm about to say, you could potentially double your income. And here it is. You're not selling your product or service. You're selling decisions and good feelings about those decisions. The biggest mistake that business people make is they think they're selling their product or service. Now, don't get me wrong. In one sense, you are. But in a much deeper, much broader, much more psychological sense, you are always selling decisions and good feelings about decisions.
Yeah, which is a great tip, fantastic tip there. So you said before that you were really shy, and this gave you the ability not to be so shy and go in and ask for a date. And I guess getting a new client on board is a bit like dating. But there are a lot of people out there in the business world that have a fear of selling. Do your tools and resources, do you feel, help people overcome those fears?
Absolutely. A huge part of what I do. If I do a 3-day event, 1.5 days is on mindset. Mindset is half the game, if not more than that. And yes, absolutely. And I think one of the problems that salespeople face is not just fear. It's guilt. It's the idea that somehow selling is bad, that you're forcing yourself on the other person. Whereas I'm saying, no, as long as you got a good product or service, selling is assisting people. When it comes to parting with money and making a decision to do it, people are in mental wheelchairs. No offense to you if you're disabled or in a wheelchair. I mean, no offense. People are like in mental wheelchairs. They don't know how to get up and walk when it comes to a big ticket item. Like I train realtors. I don't know what your audience in particular is, but it doesn't matter. People just don't know how to make those decisions. So I look as a salesperson as a decision service technician. Think of yourself as I'm just making that up on the spot.
I love
it.
A
decision service technician or a decision service engineer. That's what you're doing. You're assisting people. They're having problems with their decision-making equipment, and you're going to help troubleshoot that and fix it so they can make a good decision because people don't know how. Now, particularly in the United States, if I can sidetrack with a little story, but it will illustrate my point. I don't know about Australia, but we had a real estate crash here in 2008. People lost everything. They lost their homes. They lost their retirement accounts if they were invested in real estate funds. And those people made a decision to buy homes that everyone said was a good decision. It turned out to be a terrible decision. So people don't forget that. It's embedded in their unconscious, even if they were not one of the losers, people who lost out or didn't hold any real estate in 2008. And with all the doom and gloom forecasts, people have a button on party with money anyway. Money is equated with survival. And so you are a decision service technician. If all you do is reframe it like that and think about it in that way, it will not only remove the fear, it will give you a direction in which to go. And the other thing I teach, and I'll introduce it by asking it in the form of a question, which is this. How do you establish a motivation that's not dependent on pumping yourself up, which can get exhausting on the one hand, or making impossible statements like, I am a super millionaire, that sort of thing, or getting really, really super anxious and dreading what you have to do? How do you create a informed enthusiasm that's not dependent on your feelings in the moment or the events of the day? Because we know sales business can be chaotic. We know that no matter what we do, there are just going to be days that turn against us. So how do we prevent our motivation from just shutting down and carrying forward that shutdown to the next day and the next week, the next quarter, the next year, etc., throughout our careers? And one of the things I claim is I know how to do that better than anybody. And here's how I learned it. I had to take guys who had very bad learned helplessness. They were guys who had not talked to a woman in 10, 20 years, and they were convinced they were total losers. If you're a total loser, how can you talk to a woman? And if you don't talk to a woman, you remain a loser. I had to figure out ways to break that learned helplessness. It's sort of odd because I developed my expertise from a field outside of business, outside of sales. But that's actually the thing that makes it more applicable and more powerful, I think, than anything else out there.
Yeah, which I think is awesome when you think about it, because it's all these same emotions are the same regardless whether it's a business decision or a personal decision. Now, you mentioned it's a big part of it is about mindset,
Yes.
and it's about when you talk about mindset, it's about overcoming that fear. What is it do you find that people are fearing? Because you hear people say they fear rejection, but is that what they really fear, or is there's something else that they fear? Yeah. Or what's stopping people?
I think they do. I think as much as they fear rejection, they're in love with certainty. It's true that they fear rejection, but the other side of it is they're in love with being certain. And I teach my students, no matter what kind of student they are, you need to let go of your love of certainty, and you need to embrace uncertainty. When you're willing to walk through the world and not need a guarantee of certainty, that doesn't mean you shouldn't polish your skills. You better darn well believe I teach to polish your skills. I think unlike anybody else. And if you can accept uncertainty and give the other person radical permission to have their first response to you, whatever that first response is, then you can start to do some remarkable stuff. So yes, people are afraid of rejection on one level, but on a deeper level, they're madly in love with their need for certainty. So if you can let go of the need for certainty, and there's specific exercises that I teach people in order to actually be able to do that. See, it's not enough to give a principle. You have to give practical tools to put that principle into action. And that's my devotion as a teacher, not just to excite someone's mind, but give them the tools they can use to create so you can see it in your life and on your numbers when you run your numbers.
Yes, if you think about that absolute love affair with certainty, I do get that. I understand that. I guess what are some of the tactical ways that people can overcome this fear of worrying about whether or not they're going to get a sale?
Yeah, well, one of them is to take on a very interesting attitude. And again, this is something I learned in the dating world. When I looked at guys who are naturally good daters and naturally knew how to attract women, they had an attitude which is, and I'll give it to your business people, I'm interested in the sale, but I'm invested in my skills. I'm interested in the sale, but I'm invested in my skills. Now, the difference between interest and being interested and being invested is in a breakfast of bacon and eggs. The chicken is interested, the pig is invested.
Yeah.
I hope you get my metaphor there.
I do.
Yeah, you get my metaphor?
The chicken lives to lay another egg, that's for sure.
Most salespeople who are struggling have it back-asswards. They're so invested in getting that one sale, and they're just interested or mildly committed to their sales. If you can make that one switch in your attitude, you can take a breath, and you can avoid the big mistakes of appearing needy or appearing pushy. We know when we appear needy, it scares people off or it causes people to become aggressive. If you appear needy, then all of a sudden your buyer or whatever starts to want to bargain or get better terms. If you appear pushy, they just run. So to walk that line and appear neither needy nor pushy or aggressive is very powerful. And the best way to do that is to, first of all, embody that attitude, which is you're interested in the sale, but you're invested in your skills. A second thing to do is embody it in your body. I teach students to put 20% of their attention on the feeling of their feet on the ground, to breathe low and slow. That means breathe from the belly. And then if they get really overexcited or nervous, to defocus their vision and look peripherally. When you do these things, it turns off the fight, flight, fear mechanism. That's called the sympathetic nervous system. And it turns on the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for calming us down. So there's some physiology and science involved in that. So you want to do it in your attitude, and you want to do it with your body. And finally, and this is sort of woo-woo, I live in California and we believe in this stuff, you want to do it energetically. You want to bless everyone who comes to you, whether they buy from you or don't buy from you, whether they're competition or not. On some level, even if they're frustrating you want to wish the best for everybody. When you come from that attitude of compassion and wanting not letting yourself be stomped on, mind you, but when ultimately you bless other people, then something happens in your attitude. You create a bridge to something beyond what you thought you could imagine. And I believe in blessing people, including the people who I don't particularly like. I love all my clients. I don't particularly like all of them, but I love all of them in the sense that I want them all to succeed and I want them all to be happy. So we have to understand that our clients are human beings. They have money in their checking account and et cetera, and we may want to serve them, but they have the same confusions, the same pains. At the end of the day, they go home and they're trying to figure it all out. So let's bless all the people around us, bless the people in our businesses, even if they're aggravating us, bless them if they're doing well, bless our spouses. Just come from an attitude of blessing people and absolutely refusing to hold a grudge or to be discouraged. You just stubbornly refuse to do it. And I think this is better than saying, I know I can make $1 million. I know I can make $1 million. There's a different way of claiming that for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people are very uncomfortable with that affirmation type, self-inflation. They don't like doing that. Well,
there's the way. If you want to discuss it, we may want to move on. I have a way to make affirmations actually work. It's a very unusual and different tweak.
Yeah, well, let's dive into that. That'd be interesting to hear your take on it.
Well, again, I had developed this working with my students who are terrified of women. I found if I had them repeat over and over, I am confident with women, I am confident with women, the part of their mind that had said a billion times, I'm a loser, I'm a loser, I'm a loser, would compete with it. So I taught them 3 magic words. And if you have any kind of limitation, listener, in your business or in your life, here's what I'd like to teach you to say. Whatever that limiting statement is, put these 3 magic words in front of it. Up until now. Up until now, I could not close the big money clients. Up until now, I could not close the big money clients. This is just an example. When you say up until now, it does the following things. It binds the statement in time. It says, okay, this has been a problem, and it implies that it no longer will be. When you say, I can't close the big money clients, the unconscious mind doesn't understand time. It'll apply it to all possible times. It'll say it's not only a statement about the past, it's an affirmation about the present, and it's prediction of the future. So you want to bind it in time. I learned this when I did deep hypnotic trance work with people to relieve phobias, traumas, that sort of thing. So what we're doing here to make it really simple is up until now acknowledges that there's been a problem, and it opens up the present and the future of being different. So you say, up until now, it was the case I couldn't close the big money clients. And then you use what I call ownership language. And now I claim my skills and my learning to close my big money clients. So you're making it about skills and learning, not your sense of identity. If you make it about your sense of identity, then your ego gets involved and you're actually blocking it. So through a lot of trial and error and failure, and not failure, experiments, because I believe there is no failure, there's only feedback, I was able to create a system where my poor, lonely man, who were so stuck in 20, 30 years of feeling like losers, could actually get moving and do things in the world. So if it works for them, it's going to work for relatively competent and confident people in the business world. I usually have a whole thing on mindset. If I do a 3-day event, day and a half is on mindset because it's so crucial. When you want to make big leaps in what you're doing, it's not enough to have a new playbook. You've got to change the consciousness from which you're coming at the problem or walking through that area.
Yeah, which is really good for people to hear, because I think a lot of people in sales in particular, Ross, they have these affirmations or these things, that this negative talk, don't they? They say, I suck at sales, or I can't close those deals, or I don't know how to handle objections, or whatever it might be. And it becomes it's debilitating in its own sense, because they're not giving it a go anymore, because they're just going to be defeated. Yeah.
Well, and if I could make another point, you're absolutely right. Spot on. People should listen to this interview again and hear what you just said. Here's the other problem. If you've repeated in your mind 100,000 times, I can't close big money clients, and suddenly you start saying, I can close big money clients, you're going to create an inner civil war, because a big part of you is going to have all that momentum of saying, I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it. And then you're going to start introducing this other part that says, I can do it, I can do it. Which of those is going to have more momentum? The one that you've repeated 100,000 times, or the one that you just started repeating? Which is going to have more momentum? You tell me.
Yeah, well, absolutely. The answer is clear. Now, you mentioned before, we were talking about fears, and we've got a lot of listeners that would have a sales team, and I'm sure you've dealt with, being in that industry with the realtors, a lot of people that are managing a team of salespeople. Do you think sometimes that salespeople are pushed to achieve KPIs, and that's their fear, is not getting enough sales to keep their job? And, are sales managers managing their teams in the wrong way?
With all due respect to sales managers, I think a lot of them don't know what in hell they're doing, because they don't understand the realities of human motivation, and they have what I call a vending machine approach to human psychology. They think if they put in, I don't know how your currency is denoted there in Australia, but I'll use American currency. They think that salespeople or the people on their team are like vending machines. You put in your 50 cents worth of motivational talk, you put in your 50 cents of looking over their shoulder, their 50 cents of tracking their numbers and telling people they can do better. They push the button and out will come the Kit Kat candy bar. People don't work that way. People people's motivational strategies don't work that way. People can be chaotic, and people don't respond very well to fear and browbeating. On the other hand, a lot of sales managers want to be liked. You're not in business to be liked. Being likable is okay, but making your goal to be liked is not a very useful thing. There's nothing wrong with being pleasant. I want to draw a distinction between being pleasant and being nice, because this is something I teach my guys who come to me to learn to date. Nice means you let the other person's emotions take over. You can not only see where your salesperson is at, but you feel their feelings. You not only see where they're at emotionally, you go there. Power, or pleasant, rather, forgive me, pleasant is power that's held in check and exercised with restraint and exercised elegantly. So on the other side of the cover, too many salespeople and sales managers are nice when what they're looking to be is pleasant. Pleasant knows when it's time to use power and to get very commanding and be very directive. So finding that balance between being commanding, being directive, being kind, knowing how to listen, finding that balance, and I'm going to use a woo-woo term we use in California, finding that balance in your vibe and in your, quote, energy, end quote, is something I teach, but it's probably the hardest thing I teach.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the challenges. It is so much to do with mind, isn't it? And if a sales manager is driving a person into a fearful position, it's difficult. Now, the other thing that, you mentioned before, there was a huge real estate crash over there, and realtors must be, the marketplace must be down. The mental, thinking of these prospects now that are thinking of buying or selling is probably hindered by what has happened in the last few years. How are salespeople not looking desperate? Because I'm sure sales are harder to get. What can people do to change their approach if that is the case?
Well, I can't give everything away for free. But one of the things I do is as I said, I'm a very well experienced and very skilled hypnotist. And I teach some ways to get a prospect to look at the salesperson as an awesome choice, as someone who they deeply trust, and as someone who they want to go with. I teach them how to do that. I teach salespeople how to do that on the unconscious level, so that the person has essentially already made the decision to go with you and to let you be their agent before you even show them the data or the facts. It's very tricky, unconscious. People would call it manipulation, persuasion, call it what you will. But I can't give that one away for free. But I will say that within the first 5 to 10 minutes, you can establish that you're the person that they want to work with, using what we call in the hypnosis field embedded commands, embedded suggestions, presuppositions, and some other cool tools.
Nice stuff. Now, on some of your material, you talk about a structured step-by-step paint-by-the-numbers system. Is a system important in sales? Is that something you think everybody should be have developed in their business? Yes, and no. Systems only work to the extent that the people who are moving with the system bring in the right frame of mind, and who understand. I'm going to say it again. I have a system. People are great out there. I've read some of the books by some of the guests that you had. They're amazing. And but people are chaotic creatures. We are not paint by the numbers, plug in one input and you'll get this output. We're not computers. Science has rejected that concept, where our brains work like neural nets, where there's all sorts of impossible connections. You have to understand that no matter how good your system is, people can be chaotic. They may be the unpredictable. They may be having bad days. You may be having a bad day. So yes, systems are important. It's also important to have recognition about the limitation of any system. When you're dealing with human beings, and I've learned this through doing therapeutic work. I know how to do hypnosis. I know how to do cognitive behavioral stuff. I know how to do mindful meditation. And not every person responds to the same thing. You have to be willing to stretch yourself a little bit and deal with the person who's right in front of you. The person who's right in front of you is always more important
than the system that you're going to run them through.
Yeah, good tip right there. Always speaking about the person.
Look at a system, Ben. Look at a system. Yeah, Ben. Look at the other. Look at a system as being training wheels for a bicycle. I remember having training wheels, and one day I went from training wheels. We took off the training wheels, and my brother would just run behind me and hold the back of the seat. And then one day, without telling me, he let go, and I found I was riding that bicycle. And from then on, I could ride anywhere, all around the neighborhoods, and I was completely free. But I didn't know at the moment that he let go. He didn't tell me he was letting go. So yes, I had training wheels, but systems are like training wheels. There's a moment where you let go of them and you create what we call unconscious competence. So the way it works is you start out with unconscious incompetence. You're doing something wrong. You don't even know what it is. Then it's conscious incompetence. You know what you're doing wrong. Then it's conscious competence, where you're doing the right thing, but you're practicing. And then it becomes part of who you are. And that point we call unconscious competence, where you no longer have to think about it. You're not trying anymore. So you have to have a really good coach, a really good guide to get you to the point of unconscious competence. And that's what all your great guests have in common, all the top men. I've looked at some of them. John Livesay was on your show. He's one of my heroes. I think John is fantastic. And some of the other people you've had on, whether they know it or not, whether they teach us or not directly, that's what they're really doing through the power of their wisdom and their experience and their knowledge. If you've been on this show, then just know that I've listened to your episodes, and I think you're pretty amazing. You don't have anyone but winners on the show. So how you get such good guests, I don't know. But I want to just salute you as being fantastic at what you're doing here.
Thanks, Ross. That's because that's what we demand is good guests. That's why you're here. So tell us a bit about. I'm interested to know, if I was in sales and I come to you and say, "Hey, Ross, I'm struggling to get sales and I need 3 or 4 tips just to get better results." What would you tell me? What would you advise me to do? What's your 3 or 4 tips to get me those better sales results?
All right, you need to be a little bit more industry specific. Like, what industry are we talking about?
Okay, well, let's say I'm in a B2B industry where I'm selling business services and products to businesses.
Got it. First thing you need to do is to learn how to get in the right state of mind. So mindset is number one. The second thing you need to learn how to do is use language that presupposes that the other person wants to hear from you. So if you walk into an appointment and say, I'm not sure how much time you have today, but let me show you what I got. I think you're really going to like it. They probably heard it before. But if you say something, I'm really glad before we start this presentation, I'm not sure at which point you'll find yourself growing really excited about some of what I have to present to you. But as that's happening, will you please feel free to share any questions that naturally come up when a great decision is going to be made. Would you do that? Now, that sounds like it doesn't make any sense, but that sentence is actually programming the person so that every time they do the behavior of asking a question, it's going to reinforce the suggestion that you're the one who they want to buy from. So setting aside that specific language. Second thing that people need to recognize is, in the beginning at least, you want to think, what states of mind do you want the other person in? Set aside the behaviors that you want from them temporarily and think, what states of mind do you want them in? Do you want them in a state of being focused? Yes. A state of being comfortable? Yes. A state of trust? Yes. A state of drooling to sign the papers? Yes. So instead of thinking of small behaviors you want them to take, think in terms of states of consciousness that you want them to be in. The third thing is preset yourself, prepare for problems that are going to come up. The metaphor I use is, if you're walking down the street one night and someone jumps out of the dark alley and mugs you and beats you up and takes your wallet, and it happens again the next night and then again the next night, you'd think by the 4th night you're ready and prepared for it. Right?
There'd be a good
so
chance.
You got to be prepared for potential issues. Yeah, there'd be a good chance. So you got to be prepared for dealing with problems. And then finally, you have to feel good and right about guiding them. Remember, you're not a salesperson. You're a decision service technician. You have to feel good and right about going for the sale, going for the close, getting the signature, getting the check. You have to feel good about it and know on some level you're doing a service. And then there's one more thing I want to suggest. I recently came up with a mindset thing I call AIDRA, AIDRA. It's not the name of a woman, but it's an acronym for awareness. So if you feel like there's something coming up that's blocking you, you turn your awareness to it, and then you investigate. You think, okay, what is it that I'm thinking? Then you dump it. Then you think, what am I going to replace it with? Then you take some small action to move you in the direction to reinforce that belief. So it's awareness, investigate, dump, replace, and then action. So I just want to throw that out there. I go into this in much greater length than my mindset trainings. It's a really good way to take your stumbling blocks and turn them into stepping stones. I really like that idea of taking the momentum of your stumbling and turn it into walking proudly through where you want to go.
Yeah, like you said, there's no failures. It's all learnings. I get one of the things I'm interested to hear. You spoke there about your second stage. There was a bit of presupposition, and in the words what you say, and you gave an example of what you could say that wouldn't help you. You know, where you use the wrong words. Have you got other mistakes or some of the things that people are saying that they shouldn't be in a sales meeting?
Oh, God, yes. God, yes. You know, someone hired me to go through he's a realtor, and he does pretty well. He's near the top of his game, but he's one of those guys who always wants to get better. He sent me his listing script. If you're in real estate, you walk through the house and then you sit down and you do a listing presentation to get the person to sign you up as being the listing agent. And he was proposing things. The way he was languaging things was language in the negative. Like, now, you don't want the house to not sell, do you? And he was using that to say, that's why you need an expert like me, isn't it? And I'm thinking, that's stupid. What do you mean you don't want the house to not sell? So I had to go through and remove all the knots, little things like that, where he's languaging it incorrectly. Does that address what you're talking about?
Yeah. So
he was making presuppositions of failure. Watch out for your presuppositions of resistance, your presuppositions of failure.
Now, presuppositions is a terminology that comes out of NLP or neuro-linguistic program training. Do you think that most people, or do you think that people that are in sales should do some sort of NLP training?
Oh, well, I think they should train with me. If you can't train with me, I'll tell you why. Let me tell you why. Most NLP training is done by people who are really good at the techniques of NLP. They will teach you awesome techniques, and they're good. Some of them are great. And they don't teach you the thinking and the minds that allowed the creators of NLP to create those techniques. It's like giving you a beer instead of teaching you to build your own distillery. They'll give you beer that tastes fantastic and you want to keep drinking it. It's well worth the money. I would rather teach you how to build a brewery, give you your own tools, and give you some beer to drink while you're doing the building. So one of the reasons why I would not go to an NLP training is most of the people who teach it either don't understand it at a deep level, or they don't, for whatever reasons, choose to teach the deep level. They'll teach the techniques and tools rather than the ways of thinking that will allow you to come up with your own tools, to come up with your own ways of thinking. And I think that's the difference between me. I don't do it that way. Now, having said that, there are a lot of really good, talented people in that business. There are a lot of bad ones, but there are a lot of good ones. I think it's more fun to train with me because I think I do the best job, but everyone thinks they're the best.
Of course they do. Tell me, you've seen a lot of salespeople in your time, no doubt. Would you say that the people that are at the top of their game have invested a fair bit in training themselves, not just in NLP, but other areas of personality traits and profile, etc.?
Listen. one of the traits that people who are tops in their field are, they're always looking to improve. They're always looking to learn. Like for me as a healer, a lot of what I do is healing work with people. I don't just train salespeople. I do healing work. I work with people primarily who have social anxiety and who have stage fright. And if you're a public speaker, get in touch with me. I'll get you over your stage fright. I have found that as a healer, I will never stop learning. I will never stop learning. I've fairly well mastered 3 different change work techniques: hypnosis, NLP, mindful meditation, and then cognitive behavioral stuff. That's 4. But I know there's more to do. I know that I could go and learn Reiki. I could learn muscle testing. I'm 58 years old. If I live to be 90, there's 2 things I want to be doing when I draw my last breath. I want to be learning something, and I want like a 25-year-old beautiful Swedish girl mopping my brow and trying to be nice to me.
Your two final wishes. There you go. At least learning's in there. Well, look, I know we're mindful that we're just about out of time. But how can people find out more about what you do, Ross, if they want to find out more?
Well, the easiest thing to do, there's 2 ways to do it. I have a dynamite free video course that shows me in a live seminar applying a lot of these tools, including embedded commands, suggestions. You can watch it over and over. It's free. I will ask for your email address, but I won't spam you. Go to persuasionmasterysystems.com/free. persuasionmasterysystems.com/free. I know that's a big mouthful, but I know that you'll post a link in the show links. So you'll find it in the show links. Just go there. It's an hour-long free video training. It'll take some of your attention, but it's well worth it. The other thing I would say is if you're interested in having me do public speaking, if you have some kind of organization and you want me to come and make an appearance, go to rossjeffrieslive.com. JEFFRIES. That's JEFFRIES. rossjeffrieslive.com. And I'll get in touch with you and tell you how I can provide you with my speaking services.
Great stuff. So rossjeffrieslive.com and persuasionmasterysystems.com/free. We'll put those links into the show notes. This is episode 127. So go to businessbrainfood.com.au and put /127. And all the links will be in the show notes. If you're driving along or you're jogging or whatever you might be doing right now and you can't write that down, we'll make sure you get those links. Well, Ross, I can't thank you enough, mate, because I know when it comes to business, one of the biggest challenges people are faced with is getting customers and understanding the whole sales process. And I think you've definitely shed a lot of light on what a high-performance salesperson would need to do to take themselves to the next level. So I really do appreciate you coming on the Business Brain Food podcast today.
Oh, I'm honored to be in the company of people like John Livesay and Mike Ferry and the rest of these people. I'm astonished that I'm being given this platform. It's been my honor to be on the show and to serve the listeners. So I hope that I've been of service. And if they do that one thing, remember, you're interested in the sale, but you're invested in the skills. Chant that to yourself after you're done listening to this episode. And as you're listening for the second or third time, make sure you get that point hammered into your head, because it's a really good one. I found it's turned around the mindset for a lot of people, just that one thing.
Yeah, love it. Really love it. Well, all we've got left to do, Ross, is the 60-second scramble. Are you ready for that?
Uh-oh, I better drink some coffee. Hit me with it.
Let's start the clock. All right. What is the favorite app on your phone?
Oh, that would be Tinder.
Swiping right and swiping left. I've heard that's what you do. Talking about learning, what's your favorite book? Have you got a book you can recommend?
Yes, Prometheus Rising by Robert Anton Wilson.
Fantastic. Now, what about your biggest addiction? Share your biggest addiction with us.
Cats. I'm in love with cats. I'll talk to a cat on the street. I talk to my cats. I'm addicted to cats.
Awesome. What's your favorite drink?
Coffee.
Nice one. That's a popular one. Do you have a hidden talent?
I'm a great singer. I can sing beautifully.
And your best way to tune out and relax?
Cuddle with my wonderful, amazing girlfriend who I love so much.
Awesome. Well, thanks once again so much, Ross. Really great to have you on the show. I know that the listeners would have got a lot out of this episode, and all the best in the future. Really do appreciate it.
It's been my honor, and again, to be in such prestigious company. Thank you so much for giving me the pleasure of being a teacher and conveying some knowledge, and I hope some good, usable, functional wisdom for people.
Learn more to earn more.
Well, as usual, another fantastic interview, and some of the guests that we've been getting on have just been amazing. I mean, they've all been amazing, but lately we've had a bit of a theme to do with sales and mindset, and I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing to have that ability to know that you can listen into one of these podcasts, walk away with a bunch of tips that are going to take your sales to the next level. Whether or not we want to admit it, it doesn't matter how good our product or service is. Without marketing and without sales, no one's going to know about it, right? So we have to be great at communicating. We have to be great at having that sales conversation, and we have to be great at asking for the sale. Otherwise, no one's going to buy from us. And so hopefully that has helped you today. I know personally, I've met with a lot of the listeners, a lot of our clients in particular, that struggle with the whole psychology behind sales and being comfortable with it. My takeaways from that interview that I really loved, that was good. First of all, is you're a decision service technician. I think that's kind of cool. What a way to think about it. So I've always said to people, my definition of sales is professionally helping people make a decision, or professionally helping people buy, but really it's making a decision because they're not always going to buy. So my definition is professionally helping people make a decision. And so I can see that decision service technician sort of definition works really well for me as well, because I go into every sales meeting not worrying about whether or not you're going to buy from me. I can't control that. What I sell may not be for you, but what I don't want is I don't want you to be sitting on the fence. So if I can help you come to a decision, whether it's a yes or a no, I've done a great job. So decision service technician, I love that terminology. I thought that was really, really good. The other thing is that acronym you use, the AIDRA. Now, you may be familiar with AIDA from a marketing standpoint, but I'd never heard of this one before, where if you're challenged by something, be aware, investigate why it's happening, dump it, replace it with something else and take a new action. And I thought that was really good, is to really change the way that you think about when something is not working the way that you want. And the final piece that I think everybody should take away is that, if you want to become a master in sales, you need to learn some of the skills that the masters are using. And he mentioned NLP, and I think he's right. I'm an NLP trained practitioner, did a course, but it wasn't sales focused. We just focused on the techniques of neuro-linguistic programming, on NLP. I've just been able to adapt that over the many years into my sales process. To be able to work with somebody who can use that NLP languaging or skills and techniques and methodologies in the sales arena would be a great benefit to many people. So really love the way that he does that. So remember, you can go to persuasionmasterysystems.com/free, and that'll give you access to that free training video that he said you can watch over and over again. Absolutely awesome. Make sure you do that. And then if you do want Ross to speak at one of your events, or maybe you can do something for you with a client, etc., rossjeffries.com. Go and check it out. All the notes are in the show notes, and you can go grab that stuff for free. I just love the fact that these guests always give us good stuff away for free. And I know you got to opt in, but he's, as he said, he promises not to spam you. So go for it. Why wouldn't you? And these things, I love the fact you can opt into these things. If you want, you just opt out these days. Everyone's got that policy on their email database. So very easy to jump into stuff, check it out. And if you don't like it, jump out. If you love it, then jump further in. So I encourage you to do that. Alrighty, well, that's pretty much it for today's episode. Once again, thanks so much for tuning in again to the Business Brain Fit podcast. As I said at the beginning, it's because you keep listening in that I keep recording these. I do love doing it, and I love the feedback that I get. On that note, jump into the iTunes store if you are enjoying the show. Leave an honest review or rating, and I love reading them all. Go and leave your feedback. I'd love to hear from you. Well, thanks so much for attending again. My name's Ben Futro. You've been absolutely fantastic for tuning in and listening all this way through. Until next time, have a profitable day.
You can fly higher than the sky, shine brighter than the stars. You can live all you ever wanted.
The Business Brain Food podcast is brought to you by MaxMyProfit.com.au.